Yo, what's up, everybody? We're back after a bit of a hiatus. Yeah, I don't know what happened. Well, I know what happened. I just got involved doing other things, and we were busy, and Jeff was off, and then all things just happen in the way. And actually, maybe it's just because what's happening in the U.S. has been just so hot. I didn't even want to touch it. So how about that? But anyway, it's good. It's good to be here. And good to see folks hopping in. Hey, Jeff, go ahead and bring Elijah on, or Elijah, why don't you hop on? There you are, man.
Hey,
How's it going?
I'm good, man. How are you? Everything's good. How was
I am rocking and rolling. You're in State College, right?
Yep, yeah, I'm back in State College now. Yeah, I just got back maybe like two weeks ago from New Hampshire. Yeah, so it's been good.
All right, awesome.
Do you want to like jump right into like the questions from class, or?
Yeah, maybe we can do that. I'm curious about what people are thinking about, but also
I was thinking that
audio sync. Go ahead.
I might have actually just been unmuted and talked to the whole the whole stream accidentally instead of just you in your ear. I was thinking that the dialogues have ended, and Elijah, you have been a part of those dialogues, and so at least part of the conversation today, I would love if you could talk specifically about what the students were talking about with the class, or what they're talking about with American culture in general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wish I would have taken more notes on exactly what they said. So I'll like throw out some themes. But I know one thing for sure is there was a consistent theme throughout the class on just like analyzing your process, Sam, and not necessarily always the content, but more so like your approach. Throughout all of the dialogues, their students would always be talking about the way that you approach having these conversations, and allow them to speak. And then they would even bring in the leap dialogues that you would have with him, with the class of like 20 or so freshmen. And yeah, they were just super interested on like in your approach towards that. But other themes, like toxic masculinity.
By the way, if I could, let me just respond to that first. I think it's probably a good. It may be just the nature of how the class has grown, or the stream, or YouTube, and the conversations we're having. But I'm finding increasingly students asking about and talking about process and the approach, and how and why we do what we do, and what the outcome is for people. These are the kinds of questions that I never got in the past from students. I would talk to them. I'd open the classroom up and I'd say, hey, okay, what kind of questions do you have? People wouldn't talk about process, even though things aren't really very different. And I have the feeling that it may be just because what people are used to seeing. If we were to put cameras in anything that would warrant putting cameras in the room, is going to have a certain kind of process. It's going to have like a gotcha process or something. You're kind of manufacturing something. Like it's because that's how you make a video, right? You take the footage and you mix it up and you put it together and you make something appear as though it's something else. And so I'm wondering if that's part of it. These videos that people are just expecting it to be a different kind of process. But
when you say gotcha process, like what exactly do you?
Well, well, go ahead. Finish your question, actually.
No, yeah, I just just that actually. When you say like the gotcha process, I'm wondering if it's like they're appreciating the approach because not just because it's like entertaining, like people want to be entertained, or if that's the start of it, and then that's what gets them, like that's what they're getting into is the entertainment. But then obviously it's not entertainment for you, it's education. It's just the angle is maybe a little more exciting, or
Yeah.
It's more activating, but I just, when you say gotcha, I was just curious exactly what you meant.
Yes, the word. I think that when I like flip through shorts, YouTube shorts or TikTok or Instagram or something, Insta, I should say, Insta.
Right.
They're always increasingly, there are these videos that are not just somebody like grabbed 40 seconds of something that was going on. I mean, there are some of those, right? But so many of it are these like really pretty highly produced videos.
Mm-hmm.
And there's always this kind of element that they're doing something surprising, right? Like, oh, watch this. I mean, it's not like a cat video or a dog video or chickens running across somebody's front living room, but other things. There's very often that kind of like you're setting something up,
Mm-hmm.
right? And and so watch my neighbor get the surprise of their life, and then you ask your neighbor a question, and then this and that and this and that, and it's often very highly produced. So I'm wondering, I have the feeling that people sort of expect some of that, and they don't really get it.
Mm-hmm.
And so then they're wondering, wait, what's your process? What are you doing? How do you do this? Why do you do it? That kind of thing. It's kind of more of that,
How is it? It makes me wonder how your dialogues in your LEAP class went. Was it was it a lot of, because I've been given insight into some of them. Like they tell me, oh, we actually just came from Sam's class, and it's an opportunity where we just get to throw questions at him, and then he just goes off, and he gets to like say certain things, or just and they love it, they enjoy it. How often do you see? Can I actually bring up one quote? There was something you said actually in a video. I think it was a big moment because at times, like during the dialogues that I would have, we had great dialogues, right? And at times, other dialogues were like, okay, and there was just a moment in the Social 19 videos where you say something along the lines of, you took a moment to stop. There was like a moment of silence. And you were like, you know what I hate the most about education? And
oh my God. Just when you asked that, I'm like, oh my God, what I can't even imagine what I said. Yeah.
Oh, but I'm gonna like paraphrase it, but you were like kind of in awe of the fact that sometimes it's hard for other students. It seems like for them to be fascinated to like to talk about these social issues, and that are like so fascinating, and they're so complex, and there's so many questions that you could offer up about these topics, but sometimes you don't feel like that fascination coming from the students, and you must have to like somehow pry it out of them, or you said almost like in class, you're like it feels like the weight of like 1,000 horses sometimes to like come into class. And
I think that, okay, so for me, I think one of I'm sitting with these 18-year-olds, right? 24 of them or so. I have to kind of keep it. First off, they had no idea who I was when they walk in the class. I'm just some knucklehead, which is, of course, that's exactly who I am. But whatever, I'm just a guy. And which is really nice for me. What's that?
Small K, by the way.
Oh, yeah, all right, small K. Yeah. But and that's a good thing, because I really want to meet them where they're at. I don't want them to put any like pretenses or anything, right? I just really want to ask questions and figure out like, okay, who are you? What are 18-year-olds thinking, right? And I have to remind myself. I know I say this a lot, but I got to go back constantly and remind myself. When I was 18, if I would have been sitting in that classroom, and Sam Richards, the equivalent of Sam Richards, I mean, a professor, right, who's had a lot of experiences and been around and that sort of thing, was sitting there saying like, hey, ask me a question about anything. And I wouldn't have had any questions to ask. I wouldn't have known what to ask. I'd have had to, oh my God, man. I would have nothing. And if I would have come up with something, it probably wouldn't have been very interesting. And I would have hoped then that professor would have turned it into something really interesting. Oh, hang on, let me bounce that question back at you, like you do as a facilitator. You'll turn a kind of simple, not very insightful question, and you'll flip it around and turn it inside out, and you'll say, is this the question you're asking? They'll be, oh yeah, that's the question, right? And then you put a really meaty question out into the room, right? I mean, you do that. So I'm constantly, it's really fun for me to be sitting in this room with people who really don't have any idea what's going on in the world and don't even know how to ask about what's going on. And it's fun because I'm reminded of how I spent so many years of my life, and it's wild.
It's cool because I feel like I'm in the beginning of that journey, because you've been doing this interaction and this type of conversation with students for years and years. And so I feel like I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum in terms of experience. Just continuing. What was your process like, dealing with those, or working through the risks that you'd have to take to be able to flip that question or to continue? Was it something that was always easy for you, or did you have to?
No.
What was working?
No, it was. Yeah, it was difficult. I think you're getting the tools as a facilitator, and now a facilitator trainer, to really flip those kinds of questions around. I learned how to do this from Lori, right? And I learned of the importance of doing it from Lori, which is what I do in the classroom a lot. When students are sitting at that table and they'll say something, and I'll say, wait a minute, hang on. And then I'll kind of turn it around and say, well, is this what you mean? Or is this what you're thinking? Or I'll stop, I'll ask a question, I'll say, stop, don't answer that. And I'll realize that it wasn't a good question. So that just takes, it takes a lot of time. If I could say something, Schopenhauer, I think it was Schopenhauer who said that life was, one of the German philosophers, Axel, so one of those two, maybe you'll know, but I think it was Schopenhauer said something about life was it might have been Kierkegaard actually, because it was more, I think, kind of came from the existential world. Life was inherently evil which is really fascinating, right? Because when you get, it takes you a whole lifetime to get to the place where you can feel like you get a handle on what it means to be alive, to live a good life, to think, to understand the world, to feel like you can understand the world at even a basic level. It takes you almost a whole lifetime, right? But just when you get it, just when you're there, you got to die. And I'm like, damn it, man, that's just evil. And I remember I was probably an undergrad, maybe, when I first encountered that idea. And and I thought, oh well, okay, but I'll make it happen before then, hopefully, and I'll have enough time. And it's not. I'm just, I'm like, God, it's just sad. The thought of dying right now for me, I'm not afraid to die. I'm of the mindset that there are other dimensions of life. So the next dimension will be really cool. And because I'm a teacher, it will be a drag. I can't come back and tell people what it's like, but,
right.
But I'm sad. I'm so sad if I were to, die, have some illness and die. It's just so sad. Because I feel like I'm just getting this, and I'm just starting to understand. And now I want some time to just live into it,
Does understanding for you come from a place? When you say you understand, do you think, is that even possible to put that into words? Like what you're understanding, do you think, at this point? Or is it just feeling for you?
I don't think it's possible. It's just it's a certain kind of understand. The most complex things can't be put into words, and so
Right.
I really can't say that but it's just a way of,
Mm-hmm.
which is partly why, my teaching in the way that I do, I don't have to ever really say what I think.
Mm-hmm.
Even when I say what I think, I can just flip it really quickly and say something different. And the reason that's a really good thing for me is because I can't say what I think, because what I think increasingly is so complex and convoluted and gray
Mm-hmm.
that I can't put any color to it.
Mm-hmm.
And there are just these layers. It's like a mushroom trip or an LSD trip or some hallucinogenic trip of some sort, where you just see these complex colors and layers and patterns.
For example, like, to have an answer to something, for you it's so complex. It's like you could have an answer, but then you're like, but this.
Exactly.
And then it's just
exactly.
It starts to web out more and more.
It just goes on and on.
Right.
So when I think about this current state of the U.S. and these elections coming up, and there's so many people that are just so clear, man. Yep, got to get Trump in power. We got to get Harrison. Just got to win. We got to beat this guy. This guy's just the most horrible person in the world. Oh my God, that everything's going to fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
And I just step out of it and I look at it and I think, well, listen, 4 years from now, there's going to be a lot of really, whatever happens, right? Well, I mean, I don't know. The nuclear bombs could go up or something. I don't know, but assuming that kind of thing doesn't, whatever happens, there'll be really awesome things that occur because of whoever moved into the White House, and there will be things that will be not awesome.
Yeah.
And I can't say which will be more. Like, I can't say that at this stage. I don't know, and for me, just me personally, I don't know, what. So when I get to that place, it's not like I remove myself, but it's like, just intellectually, man, just the ability for me to make intellectual arguments for different things that are I think I could make pretty fascinating intellectual arguments for anything. And so anyway, that's what I mean. Like, I can't.
Yeah. I had a question. I started to lose it. For you, I guess, regarding politics, is there anything for you that I guess I wanted to add on? It depends, like you were saying, there could be something there could be something positive for this side, or like positive, like you don't know what were you saying you don't know what the benefits are? There's different benefits.
Well, you never know. No, listen, no matter what happens, this is the thing you have to live in every day, right? So when I was your age, I kind of had a sense of this, but then I really discovered it maybe like 15 years ago, like really discovered it. And then it took me about 15 years for it to just percolate into my soul, right? And it's the idea that regardless of whatever is in front of me or whatever happens, there's positive and negative consequences.
Right.
And it's just this impossible to measure, to quantify if-thens that happen, right? So if I look back my life, as I look ahead, if-then, and then it just branches off into just an infinite number of possibilities.
Right.
Half of them are things I would want, and half are things I wouldn't want. I just assume that. That's just sort of a given, right?
Right.
Better than worse. This half are the better ones, and this half are the less better ones. You know what I mean? They're not the ones I wouldn't want.
Mm-hmm.
Well, once you go there, and once you live in that, and once you're really in it, and again, it's percolating into everything, every breath that I take, and exhale, that I take in and I exhale. You have to just sit back in awe at the magic of the universe. Yeah.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love that. No, well said. I'm kind of
Well, that's the thing, right? So then somebody asked me, like, "Whoa, is that just some question about something? I don't know, just anything at all." It's just like, it matters, right? Everything matters to certain people, right? Like the Israelis just assassinated this Hamas leader, right? Okay, they haven't said so, I don't think, but they
Did
probably
that just
did.
recently happen? Is this recent?
Yeah, yesterday.
Okay.
And I'm just like, oh, okay, guys. Oh man. All right. Whoa. All right. And then the
What do you
moment
see?
I spend my 7 seconds going like, oh
Mhm.
God, this is gonna be like, man, okay. And then once I get past that, I'm like, well,
What
all
is
right,
this?
then what's this?
Yeah, like what is that? For
It's just deep concern for an act like that by a nation state on the global stage, in which so many people are vested in it in different ways. That
Mhm.
act is going to have such powerful and potentially tragic, and for some people tragic consequences, right?
Right.
It's a big act. It's not like me, you know saying something problematic in class and losing my job. That's just like, whatever. That's just,
Mhm. But
so
this.
this is just the weight of it. Like, oh man, oh my God. Okay, whoa, there's gonna be, here we go.
Mhm.
Things are gonna happen, right?
Right. Just
But I'm not saying what. It's just a lot of very powerful, serious things are going to happen. But I'm not. But some are going to be like, okay, well, it's really good that thing happened, and for some people somewhere, and other things. So
right.
this is yeah. There are too many people involved. It's too complex. So I just go, okay,
Hmm.
okay.
And this is just comes from like the anticipation of the retaliation that you expect. Is
Yeah.
just the
Yeah,
confusion of
and yeah, I've lived long enough to watch these things unfold, and I've been around the world enough to watch them unfold and
right.
see how they impact people and how they've already impacted people. It's just, it's not, and
Right.
how these things we just keep things going.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, just it's
Speaking of this is a little different, but did you pay attention at all to the opening ceremony for the
the
Olympics?
Olympics.
Yeah. This
Yeah,
is
I paid attention to a little bit of the controversy. Yeah.
yeah. This is actually a question I opened up just to like kind of build rapport with the students throughout dialogue. It just seems something that was, uh, it happened over the weekend, and I think it maybe last weekend, and it was
Yeah.
pretty popular. So I asked the students about it, and some were aware of like of the controversy, and you heard some of the similar, um, statements that are pretty popular. Just the idea that it was like mocking Christianity, or like why is these are some thoughts, and this is what some students said, and what I've seen on social media, but and why would they do this on this world stage? Like, what is the message? What are others interpreting? What was the
Yeah.
point of it? Um, and it's interesting. It's like the way that we start conversations. Like this to me could be, I'm not sure about you, but could be a good example of like clickbait in a sense.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like starting a conversation with this action, it seems like a conversation about the way I interpret it about
Yeah.
religion, or I don't really know exactly. I'm curious to know what you think about it, but
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
it's just interesting
I'll,
to, yeah,
let me give you my response to that. I
yeah,
saw it and I read it and I thought, and I had such a wide range. I circled around my brain for a while, right,
hmm,
on it, and then I didn't dig deep into it. I mean, I watched it. I watched short videos. I watched some of
hmm,
the reactions, some of the stuff people said. I said, okay, listen. When I was younger, uh, I used to I used to just like to be a little bit provocative, and that was fine, you know, um, because that's what you do when you're young people, right? Especially, like a teenager in my 20s, and I went, I kind of came of age when I was in my early 20s, maybe like 23, 24, 25 is when I started to get politicized. I started reading about U.S. foreign policy around the world and realizing, oh my God, there's a lot. Oh my God, just reading constantly. It was constantly that, like, oh, I've been lied to my whole life. Like, I wasn't really lied to. It's just I never paid attention. There were plenty of people out there that were. People say that, they lied to me in the history books. No, they didn't. All you had to do was go down to your damn library and get a book out. You know what I mean? Like, go whatever. Nobody's lying to you. You're not asking the questions. You haven't awakened yourself to start asking these kinds of questions that are worth asking. So in any case,
just real quick, that reminds me of what Amin was saying in one of the videos, like the smoke and mirrors. There was a point where he was like, oh, well, like, how can I help? Well, some people, the mainstream culture is just so tied up and like the smoke and mirrors, like, I guess what they're presenting to you versus, not taking just what's presented, but also doing research, to question what's being presented or see a different perspective, which, like you said, many people aren't.
So here's the thing on that. Nobody's presenting. No one gets together and decides, hey, this is exactly what we're going to get people to all think a certain way. Like, no one's doing that. And even the books, right? We have, American history books or whatever. And Make America Native Again. Yeah, I love that. That's really funny. And nobody's really doing that. I mean, there's maybe a kind of a small amount, but everyone just sort of follows what came before. You know what I mean? Like, there's the way we present history. Like, think about history books. It's like war after war after war. Like, most of history is very boring and very uninteresting. It's just average people's lives. But we focus on the wars, so we think that's all that happened. It's like, that's not happened. It's a very small part of history. But in any case, so I kind of came, man, I don't even remember what I was talking about.
I know. I'm trying to get back to the question as well.
Oh yeah, no, I know. It's the thing about the Olympics. Right?
Yes.
So when I came of age, I was sort of angry. I was an angry young man, the Billy Joel song, because I was like, oh my God, all this is going on, and I didn't know about it, And I should have just been angry at myself if I wanted to be angry, that I never bothered to look. But,
was there anything specific you were angry about? Like,
just all the things that the U.S. government has done around the world in the name of capitalism and democracy and U.S. justice and patriotism. And I focused on the area where I first focused was in Latin America. So I was looking at all of our foreign policies in Latin America and everything we've done to support and uphold dictatorships and authoritarian regimes and, military governments, not just there, but Southeast Asia and Africa and, just the lies. Like, oh my God, like, God, this is horrific. The massacres and so.
And you wouldn't say you wouldn't say that was presented.
I mean, I never read. I mean, were you ever gonna read that stuff, right? Like, it's not like, okay, they could have read that that could have been in the history books. Well, it might have been in the history books in my high school to some degree, but I didn't ever read the history book in my high school because I was too busy just doing my own thing, so it wouldn't have even mattered if it had been. And maybe I read it and it just went right over my head. But when I was, 24, 25, it started making sense to me. So then I became this kind of angry guy. Well, at that point in time, I was much more open to being provocative because I was just pushing, like trying to push wherever I needed to push. So like in my classrooms, I was constantly just, hey, check this out. Look at what happened in such and such a place, with your tax dollars, kind of stuff like that. And I don't, and then all sorts of things that were, that were sacrilegious were not, nothing was off limits for me. You take your religion and like, come on, just whatever, grow up. Like whatever it was, I could just be kind of provocative. Mm-hmm. But over time, as I acquired a certain deeper sense of understanding of all sorts of things, right, of people, and I forgave life itself for what it is, forgave myself for not knowing and not understanding, and forgave it's this is just how life is designed by the creator or by chance or by whatever, I was less open to the provocation, and I didn't need to, it's much easier for me to just let people do the things and believe the things they want to believe, right? So if people believe that there's a, the biblical story of the ark of Noah, and Noah truly did gather all the 30 or 40 million species of every type of life form on the planet, pairs of species, and put them on the ark, and the ark was the size of the state of Delaware or whatever it would have been. I don't know. Then it's like, that's fine. It's all right. My God, if that life is so damn difficult, if that's okay, that allows people to do that. And so when I see something like that, the piece on Christianity,
in the Last Supper, right?
The Last Supper piece, right? So I'm like, first off, I'm like, that offends you? Like, okay, so I go from different angles, right? So I'm like, yeah, the Last Supper thing. Yeah. If I were like, come on, people, this was going to be a little bit offensive to Christians. You got these trans activists and the part of the queer community. It's like, do you need to do that on this stage? This is such a stage. Like, and then I'm like, but it's the French. I mean, my God, French have led the world. They've opened us up, gotten us away from our prudish nature in the world of sexuality. Like, touche to the French, right? Like, God, okay, of course you're going to do that kind of stuff, right? I mean, like, oh my God, I've been doing it for 500 years, right? So and then I think, go ahead.
Or this is something that's this is more so expected or kind of common coming from the French, you're saying?
Yeah, the French, dude, they're just going to push sexuality in these crazy ways. I mean, this is Marquis de Sade. It's all this stuff, right? This is the French, all the French writers and that, and in queer issues in particular, the French have been so instrumental in opening these up back in the 18th century and 19th century and 20th century and so on. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's what it is. This is part of this kind of doing it. And then I go to the other side and I'm like, yeah, but come on, guys, this is the Olympic. You really, honestly, you've got so many traditional cultures out there. You want to kind of be aware of it. And then I think, yeah, but it's whatever. Okay, but don't be offended. Like, just don't turn your eyes away, whatever. Like, I don't know, it's one after another. But I can't land anywhere because I can see it from so many angles, and I don't have any feelings about it other than, wow, that's really fascinating.
Yeah, like this is just happening.
This is happening, and a little bit of surprise that the Olympic Committee would go that route, and it's pretty hard. But at the same time, a bit surprised that would happen in 2024. Like, wow, we've made some just incredible progress in the world of sexuality,
right?
And hetero and homosexuality and all things queerdom, right? Like, wow, we have made. Wow, the world has changed. Holy smokes.
Right.
We're never going backwards. People that want to sort of put the genie back in the bottle, it's like, that's never happening. So don't even think about it. But at the same time, people that want to just spill the bottle all over everybody's realities, right? Don't spill it over my computer keyboard like, some guy did on a flight, coming home from Qatar one time. He spilled his wine all over my keyboard. Just like, it's like, you don't have to. Okay, maybe you don't have to do that. Like, I find myself more and more respectful in ways that 30 years ago I wouldn't have cared, and now I care a little bit. Like, we don't have to offend somebody.
Yeah, I guess so. So you don't think that was the best way to kind of? Do you have any interpretation on what they were? Do you think it was more so like activism and creating more inclusion and just a statement? It was like a statement from that community per se, or?
Well, there's like the commentary, Eric is sort of saying this, I think, in the chat a little bit. Is it like the Greek thing, the Roman thing, the this, the that, the that, the that? Well, you should just kind of know that a little bit, But at the same time, I just, it's just so crazy to not have opinions. It's so crazy to not have opinions, or to have multiple opinions that just all come together. It's so fascinating.
For the audience to have many different opinions?
No, for me to not have opinions. Yeah.
It's interesting for you to not have an opinion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just reflecting on that, you're like, wow, I don't. So
yeah, I just like seeing that. Yeah.
Yeah. I just think it's interesting. It's cool. So you think, as a sociologist, though, you don't think that maybe this is the best? I don't know. Because it sounds to me like part of you is saying, you're like, I don't know if you should have done that. Like, do you think that was like in our terms of world and conversation when we think about combat and conflict?
Yeah.
Where do you think that lies in terms of like the behavior of and like starting a conversation? Do you think that's like a conflict thing, or do you think that's like a combat thing, if you know what I mean, in terms of
combat and conformity, right? What is a conflict and collaboration?
So like
combat and conformity.
Yeah, and how combat, I think in like the sense of therapy, there's like the four horsemen, there's like stonewalling, and I think I might be wrong, that I can't remember the three other and the four horsemen in therapy. I kind of want to think about it. I wish I could bring it up, but I know one of them is stonewalling, and there's maybe like lashing out, and that could be considered combative. Like, it's dysfunction. It's not just conflict, but it's like, it's not just disagreement, but it's trying to create like even more. You have a position in a side, and now you're really like going at it.
Yeah, you're trying to really push it. Yeah,
and I'm just wondering if that lies in between anywhere, like that, what they did, if it's like conflict or combat, you know what I mean?
Yeah, somewhere there, I think. Yeah, I think somewhere there. That I'm just, there you go. Yeah, I'm a little more reluctant for a lot of that at this stage. Yeah. Which is kind of interesting, because people would watch my class and be like, dude, just by choosing the titles, the themes, and the topics, you're stirring the pot a great deal. Whereas I don't really think I am, because I'm trying to actually have really thoughtful show that even in these really hot button topics, we can have very thoughtful conversations, But I have to go back to this and say I really appreciate. So Wallflower kind of said this about the French, like they're playful in that way, That's French theater, right? So that whole thing was kind of like, okay, well, if you understand all of that,
right?
But at the same time, I don't know, maybe not everybody understands it.
So it's interesting what being or not interesting, but just to hear when you do understand, when you're cultured, like when you're less triggered, because you understand where it's coming from. And like for you, for those in the chat, and for you, you understand that this is a common of the French. And so
anyway, I appreciate it. Like, I want that. You'd never see that kind of thing in East Asia. If the Chinese were doing the opening ceremony, oh my God, it's all going to be about uniformity. South Korea, same thing. Japan, it's all going to be about this, uniformity, and everybody collaborating together and working together, and it's going to be that. That's the theme, because that's the theme that emerges out of the culture,
right?
And that's okay. That's pretty cool. It's equally as fascinating, right? But
I guess it's also interesting just to think about how you related that to your classes and like the class titles. And I think the one difference, obviously, is like you present this, you allow for there to be like room for conversation. I guess just going back to that, it's like on TV, I guess the only conversation that's happening is there's like bickering at home, or like people are talking about it on home while watching. But it's the people in their homes, they're in like their own little like echo chamber, right? where there's
Yeah. Well, this is the thing, right? This is why I always tell myself I have to listen. Well, now I've gotten to the place in my life, like I have enough history behind me and enough experience that I can see something like that and then ask myself what I think about it. And then I can draw from all these things because I'm of the age now when I can begin to do that.
right.
But, throughout my life, it's why it's been so important to experience something like that and then go find out what other people are saying about it. Like how would a French historian say? What would they say? Like what would somebody who's really involved in queer issues say? Or what's somebody who's a historian about the Olympics? And so they would say to somebody, listen, here's the purpose of opening ceremonies. And they're like, oh, okay. Let me understand that. And then, because people say, oh, you like offended Christians, every Christian in the world. I saw someone write that. I'm like, dude, there's a billion, 1.2 billion or 1.8 billion Christians, whatever it is. It's like, trust me, they weren't all offended. Like that's also just pretty absurd. I think that was Donald Trump's kid or somebody like that said something like that. I'm just, come on, man. Like that's so you got to everybody calm down and anyway, listen, go back to the class. Are there any other questions or themes or something that?
Yeah, I do have some. Let me just find it. I just thought there was some from like protecting our children, the class on sexuality and like sexuality in schools. I have some questions off of that one. There was I have some questions like with the Indigenous ways of thinking video. Kind of because I know a lot of the times you're talking about your experiences internationally, and I've never really heard you speak too much on like your experience with like Indigenous tribes or like going to reservations. So, one simple question I was thinking to maybe get some more insight on like your experiences if you've had them, if you've gone to reservations like with DJ or other ones, just what those experiences were like for you if you've had them. Just because DJ talks about the way she talks about, DJ Anamon talk about the Native Americans tribes, and,
way of knowing, way of
right.
being. Yeah. Well, there's an Indigenous, and I want to go back to Natalie Wims. I want to go back to what you're saying about North Korea, about some particular class. I'm curious. I want to see that because I'm curious about what that was. If I was I wasn't praising anything about North Korea, but I was probably saying some things that might sound like that. So I want to come back to that.
We can go to that now if you'd like to.
No, I don't. I don't know what Williams. All right. Okay. Thanks. All right. To say more about what the thing was what it was in particular, and then I'll read it and I'll.
And that's responding to Natalie, right?
Yeah, Natalie, do that, and then I'll respond to it. Okay. But I think
also maybe to build on that for you, I hear you spoke on. There's so many ways I could go with this question. Just there's one moment where they talk about the Indigenous ways and how spirituality is like intertwined into their lifestyle. And this is a question that I brought up for the students actually. Like what's their relationship with spirituality? Like, is it just through religion for them? Because it's interesting how I don't know, not for all, but DJ was mentioning how some people will find spirituality through religion, but then one of the differences in Indigenous philosophy and like religion is spirituality is like a constant way of life. Like it's never separate.
Yeah.
Intertwined.
Yeah.
And And I could ask you, like, on your spirituality, there was one video where you said you were atheist, another video where you said you were agnostic, and then this video, well, this interview, you're saying that you were like, you do believe in like other realms. So one question could be, you know, just about you in terms of your what's your relationship with spirituality? That's like a personal Sam question, and then another question would just be your experiences with reservations.
All right, I can respond. Well, let me go back to first, you know, the sociology of religion in this sense, right? When you come up with the idea of a singular God, who's the God is the singular God who has created. First off, if there's a singular God, that means, you know, that God created everything, right? And if there's a singular God who created everything, then it's not a very big step to have the idea, or also need to have the idea, that that God wants things in her or his creation to unfold in particular ways, right? So if we exist here, I have to be always asking myself, well, what does the person or the being that created me think or want, right? Well, once, you know, once I go there, and I start asking those kinds of questions, and I realize that other people around me, it's natural that once you have that singular God idea, the monotheistic religious force, right, that other people are going to be asking the same questions. And so the sociology of the matter, sociological process is that people are going to unify, they're going to come together, and they're going to pose those questions, and they're going to arrive at certain answers to the questions that are similar, so that they can sort of say, like, okay, instead of here's what I think, it's like, all right, here's what we think, and the we being a certain group of people, okay? And this is how we're going to answer these very complex questions about this God that has created us and is now necessarily demanding, or of course, because this is how you're going to think, what do you want me to do, God, now that I'm here? And you understand that this is baked into the human, to the condition of life, that you're going to ask those questions. So now, once I have there are a certain group of people who start to think a certain way, then they're gonna, you know, it gets more and more complex, because you have to ask more and more questions, right? You have to have more and more rules for the greater complexity that arises when you realize all of the things that are going on in life, that this God is watching. So you're just more and more questions. How do I drink my water? Like, how do I raise my child? How do I this? How do I that? How do I interact with? It's an infinite number of questions, right? Well, around that, as humans begin to gather together, they're going to build spaces to gather together. Well, that's the temples and the churches, and then, you know, you're gonna start coming to agreements about things, and when you have the ability, you're gonna start writing things down, and then you're gonna pass all those things along to your progeny, to the next generation of people. So they're gonna carry on the traditions that starts with a very tiny group of people, and it grows into a huge populations of people. Does that make sense? This is the origin of a religion.
Right.
And then you're going to develop rituals around that religion, because, you know, you're going to all have to act in certain ways, and that's what carries that religion through time and through space. So that, you know, we're going to all have an agreement. We're going to come together, and we're going to worship in a certain way. We're going to think in a certain way. We're going to do all these things, and then we're going to pass that on to other people, and that carries across time and space. Time, because we can pass it along to our progeny, our ancestors, or the people that come after us, and space, because then we can take that and move it around to different places and geographically, right? And then suddenly you've got these complex religions that begin to emerge, right? Well, the indigenous ways of being are simply people who never moved into the space of the singular monotheistic world, which happened in the West. You know, this is very much a Western thing. And so, okay, with Judeo-Christian, Abrahamic religion, you know, Abraham, I mean, it starts with Judaism, and then it goes to Christianity and Islam and so on, right? But native indigenous peoples, they don't have that. And so what they have is they have the reality. You see, you're going to come up with gods. Everybody comes up with gods because they come up with stories, but there's generally multiple gods for most of people, most of history. It's not just a singular god, it's multiple, or there's one god, and then under that god there are other gods, and then that kind of thing. Like in Hinduism, you have some gods that are that are just far more stronger and superior than others. And so then you have to build your spirituality, your sense of why are we here, where did we come from, where are we going to go. You have to build that into nature around. And that's and here in the US, the indigenous peoples, that's the indigenous ways of knowing. And you build that in. And so you get your cues from nature, right? Cues for ethical behavior and moral behavior and moral thinking and that sort of thing. It comes from what you see around you. And that's why all the stories are just so fascinating and built into, what's how the water flows, right? We're going to be like water. We're going to see how the fish. Dude, we're back. Oh my God.
What happened there?
I don't know what that was. Yeah. All right, Jeff, can you ping me in Discord and tell me what happened? Or in the private chat.
Are we still?
Or something. In any case, yeah, we're good. We're rocking. Okay. So in any case, that's that.
Sorry.
That when you think about, as I listen to that class and I listen to Amen and DJ and so on, that's where my mind goes, right? It's really that, that the spirituality emerges out of life itself.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess for me it's interesting because when I think about just religion in general, sometimes for me there was a lot of I definitely rejected it growing up in ways. I would just follow it, because my dad wanted me to, but I didn't exactly embrace it fully. I think there's some times where I embraced it, but not all the way, and I had my moments where I would read, and try to, really feel it. But then I would also think about this word, like dogma in religion. And then for some reason, it might just be the narrative of how they portray Native Americans without, really looking at, for example, when DJ was talking about the Redskins and how, it's what do you think people think when they see the Redskins, like this NFL football team? No longer the Redskins anymore, the Commanders now. But the people weren't actually acknowledging their history, everything they'd been through. They're just seeing a mascot.
Yeah.
One of the narratives for me was with the indigenous way. And I think my mom being in yoga and in Reiki and very mystic herself, I've always seen the indigenous way is very, very pure. Right. And then sometimes religion, more dogmatic and more reason to reject it versus I'm what is that?
All right, let me turn that on its head for you.
Okay.
First off, the fact that you could have these big religious institutions or groups, or you could have thousands or millions of people who are following a similar kind of ideology. Pretty awesome, man. We talk about 1.3 or 4 million Muslims and then Christians and anybody Sikhs and people who are Hindu and Jewish and this and that, and it's man, you can get 5 people in a room to mostly agree on something. That's pretty remarkable. And you got thousands and millions and hundreds of millions, like that. So talk about dogma, right? That's pretty cool. I'm speaking as a sociologist here, right? Now, and then the dogma is, well, you better have some level of dogma or nobody's going to follow. What's the point, right? If it's just well, you can worship God by drinking lots of beer or drinking no beer, or you have to drink beer, or you can never drink beer. Somebody's gonna, you just go whatever, anything goes, and so you're gonna have to have some rules here,
Right.
and that's how you create these big, huge institutions. So I'm not saying they're a good thing, but man, it's pretty cool to be in a Muslim space. And I remember one time, when I was in Turkey, and the call to prayer happened. It was my first time. I was at I forget which mosque I was at, one of the big mosques downtown. It wasn't the Blue Mosque, but the call to prayer happened. And I was in between like 3 mosques, right? There was one here and one here and one behind me, like a block and a half, 3 blocks from each other. But I could really see. Call to prayer happens, and people are just going to the mosque, from all directions, right? Going to each of the 3 mosques. And I was like, and I remember just watching.
What is the call to prayer?
The call to prayer, yeah. So like well, you're calling, you're 5 times a day. You're calling people to come and pray, right?
Right.
And if you don't go to the mosque and pray, you can pray elsewhere, wherever you are, but get your prayer rug and point it toward Mecca and rock on with your prayer. But right. It was so awesome to see that, oh my God, right? Or to be in one of these little towns where you've got 6 Christian churches on Main Street, and then on Sunday morning at 10:30, which seems to be the time, all the cars pull up and people are just funneling into the churches. That's pretty cool. Right. And that can happen. Yeah.
What's cool about that for you? What?
Well, you get a lot of people that they all act together. They're worshiping. They're coming together to try to respond to the perennial questions of life, the most consequential, most important questions in a way that human beings can ask, right? And we're trying to alleviate our fears of all of these things, the deep fears, especially the fear of death. This is the huge thing. And also just the meaning of life. What am I supposed to do? I can do anything. What am I supposed to do? Help me out here, right? And so you get people coming together and being able to gather and mostly agree. There's a lot of disagreement, obviously, but to gather. And then sometimes I go to one of these mega churches, that have the killer bands, the great drummers, great bass player, great keyboardist, and they're just rocking and rolling and jamming. And I remember rolling into one down in Tampa, Florida, with this guy that was the white. Paula White, I think that was who it was. She and her husband had it, but then they got divorced and whatever, and then she took it over. But I remember pulling into the parking lot. I was down there and I'm just I gotta go to this church, man. And I rolled into the parking lot. The windows were down in the car. I was with my sister, and the whole parking lot I felt like the whole thing was shaking, because the band was just jamming inside, And I remember going in and I walked through the door, and then I probably agree on 5% of what most of these people thought probably the way I should live my life, and maybe 10 or 20%. I'm basically a decent person, but we'd probably disagree on. But it was so awesome, and I was in there, and I'm dancing in the aisle. My sister's like, "Where are we gonna sit?" I'm like, "Dude, follow me, man." And we're just dancing in the aisle right up to the very front, man. And everyone's dancing, and it was they had an altar call, and I almost went to the altar. I'm like, "Yeah, I'll be safe, whatever. What do I gotta do?" But I it was just so much. It was so awesome, and to feel the energy with all these people. I felt oh my God, I don't know any of you, and yet I just felt this real intense energy. So that's cool, right? That's cool. And that's the first thing I want to say. The second thing I want to say about Indigenous peoples, they got issues. It's not all squeaky clean and fun and games and lovely, beautiful sense of autumn or spring flowers, man. There's a lot of bullshit that happens, Lori and I were on when we were on the res back in March, and I'm just no, this isn't there's no moral elevation here. These are people that are struggling just like people in in Rome, inside the Vatican, you know, or wherever, or one of these Texas megachurches where their pastors just keep stepping down left and right because of these sex abuses, you know. I don't know if you're watching that, but this is the same thing, man. It's all happening everywhere. So nobody's got the high moral ground here.
Right. No, I hear that.
Dude, there it is, Axel. Yes, the Blues Brothers film. Yeah, it was totally that, man. It was so much fun. And the thing that was most painful for me about that experience is I wanted to jump up on stage and play the drums, man. I so wanted, and they had some hand drums there that nobody was playing, and I really wanted to play those. Like, I just wanted to go grab someone and be like, dude, I'm a drummer. Let me go play those drums. Come on, man.
That's fun. And it was like one of those big mega churches, you're saying?
Yeah, big in a big warehouse kind of thing, you know. I love that. If we had a mega church in town here, I would definitely go. I'd be in the band, you know. And I did. I remember one time I sang, you know, the Handel's the Messiah, you know the Hallelujah.
Yeah, I think so.
Hallelujah. Okay, that's the Messiah, right? Well, I used to sing in that. I had my own Messiah book even, and I would sing in that at various places. And I remember, even after I decided at one point I was an atheist, because at one point I was just pure atheist, you know, I was still singing in the Messiah. And I remember, and that was after one time, it was this big church, and they gave me a choir robe. I wasn't a member of the church, but I had a robe, and I'm doing the whole thing. And at the end, these two older women came up to me. They like kind of sought me out, and they came up, and there were probably 100 people in the choir,
right?
Again, I wasn't a member of the church. I just came. I went to rehearsals so that I could go sing in this thing, right? And they sought me out, and they came up to me and said, "The Lord," something like this. The Lord, we could see the Lord living and breathing through you. We couldn't take our eyes off of you. You were so radiant and happy. And I'm like, I was, and I'm an atheist, but it was so amazing. But in that moment, I wasn't. You know, the Creator was coming through my vocal cords. You know, so
when you say, are you still an atheist?
No, because I am compared to how most people think about a god or multiple gods, but I wouldn't. I just say that I'm a spiritual. I'm an agnostic in terms of I'm never going to settle on a particular way of seeing the world. I have my own way, and have my own way of seeing life and origins and the afterlife and so on. I don't know that it's right, but I won't know until I cross over, but it's
so for you, when you're in these different when you're in the mosque or when you're in the church, it's for you, it's being appreciative of just all people are here right now with the intention of trying to do something good,
totally just trying to make sense of their lives, trying to I was in Cairo last year. We were in Cairo, and and it was during Ramadan, right? And I'm just like, okay, well, I got to go to this one particular mosque. It's one of the oldest mosques in Cairo, right? And I'm like, I got to go in there. So we went down, and Lori and her father waited outside. I'm like, I'm going in, so I got to go in, because I got to be in this, and just to feel the energy. Oh my God, it was the last prayer, and then people were still around, and someone was delivering a talk, and it was just to feel. And by the way, just in Ramadan, to be in Cairo in Ramadan and be downtown, from like 11 at night to 3 in the morning kind of thing, and people just sharing everything and have little kids, and it felt so good. It just felt so amazing to be so much awesomeness and people just being their best selves, and it's such a high holy time of year, and you just feel it, So I highly recommend to anybody go spend a few days during Ramadan in a Muslim space, where there are many Muslims, and just really appreciate that. It's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
It
Not
sounds
probably
cool.
not like Dubai or Doha or something, or Abu Dhabi. Like not there. Yeah, if you have to know a family, you have to get in. But somewhere like a Cairo or something, you know.
What's the reason you say Cairo versus like Abu Dhabi or Dubai?
Well, because in those other spaces, there are too many. If you know a family and you can be invited in to the inner fold, that's fine. But and it's also cool, you know. You go down to the souk, if you go to the souk in Kuwait City or Doha or something. But there was just something about just the outdoorness. Yeah, I shouldn't say that. Any place would be fine. It doesn't really matter.
Right. But there's something about, like you're saying, the community and just everyone out, you know, from these two times.
Yeah,
sharing
like I was.
vibrancy.
Yeah, like I was in the Vatican at the Vatican years ago on Christmas. Not Christmas Eve. It wasn't Christmas Eve, but it was Christmas Eve day. Wow, man! You just felt the magic of that. It was just really magical. Could feel it. There's just something about the space. All these Christians at this moment that's so important to them. Of course, it's not. The 25th of December was not the birth of Jesus. I mean, whatever. But that just goes, but it's irrelevant, right? That wasn't the day that Jesus was born. Jesus of Nazareth, whoever that is. I mean, but that's the kind of stuff I used to focus on when I was snarky and young. But now it's just like to be in that space with all that magic. Like, oh man, that's just really cool. So
it makes me wonder, just as a sociologist, the different types of atheists, and just how we're seeing that religion can help people, at least, even if they're just subscribing because of their parents, or like when they're first introduced to it, and they're following along, or like how I did. There was at least some inkling of like moral, a pathway to follow, right? And it just makes me wonder if for those, because I know you see the health and the functionality.
Yeah.
Right. You see that it's very healthy. And I'm just wondering if, like, for those that are, if you see the same health and like other views, like atheist, like those are the atheistic, if they don't have, let's say, like the knowledge that you have on like culture, if you think that's maybe not good for humans to like not have a type of faith, or not good, because I don't think anything's not.
I hear you.
But
what are your question is, what are the drawbacks of that?
Right.
I think it depends on the person, really. I think there are a lot of people I know who just feel like, hey, I'm here. I was born here. Life, the DNA of the universe is such that here I am. I'm going to die. And when I die, I'm just going to go back to where I was before I was born. And I don't remember where I was. And that's where I'm going to go. It's just to nothingness. Right. And I'm here. Right. That's fine.
Is that close to like nihilist, do you think? Or
maybe. But the issue is but then you can be an atheist who's like really angry at religion and stuff. Like, I'm not angry at when religious people try to push their religious views on me. I'm always quite thankful, especially those people who have a worldview that says, hey, I'm right and I'm going to go to heaven. And anyone who doesn't believe what I believe is not going to go to heaven. And it's my obligation to help convince them so that they can come to this amazing place that I'm going to go. And I'm like, well, if you think that, you damn well better try to convince me to join you in this beautiful path that you're on, man. Like, if you don't do that, it's like, I'm going to keep the secret to myself. Like, who are you to do that? Like, come on, that's pretty mean. So if people ever ask me, they hand Bibles out to me, as they do on campus, or, we have a friend who came up, who is still our friend, who's Jehovah's Witness. And, I don't know if you know the story, but Lori's like the only person, and probably Jehovah's, I think the whole congregation still talks about it all over the world. She's the only human being that ever opened her window and told a Jehovah's Witness, like, hey, you didn't come to my house. Come to my house, right? And so
I think I did slightly hear about that story. Go ahead. Yeah.
So he comes and they talk, and he comes back and we talk, and then we've become friends, and he'd come in all the time. He'd come in with his wife. He'd bring other people. We became close friends. And then Lori hired him. He worked at World in Conversation. He co-facilitated with Lori, and it's such a cool guy, man. We love this guy. We still see him. He's still walking the neighborhoods. He retired from Penn State, and it's just so. How awesome is that? You know, and we pray. He comes over every time he leaves. We say a prayer, and he prays for us, and we're like, dude, thank you, man. And like, I love this guy. And you want to know the crazy story? Here's a crazy story. So this guy is like, and then we have dinner together. You know, he's been over for dinner and that kind of thing, right? So here's the craziest story. So his daughter kind of left the church. So, you know, when you're Jehovah's Witness, it's a whole different world, man. This is Christianity on like ethanol or something. I don't know. Right? But when you have kids, your kids, they grow up and they become your brothers and sisters. They're not your children anymore. Once they move into the fold, it's a assembly all over the world. It's an assembly of brothers and sisters. Everybody's a brother and a sister. So some point in time, I don't know when the magical moment is, but you stop calling your son or your daughter son or daughter, and they become brother and sister. My brother here, right?
Do you still
so your dad would call you his brother, right?
But he would would he still act as if he was my father, or
no, because he's not anymore. Because you're simply your people who are part of the assembly of God, the children of God, right? So that gets diminished tremendously, right? Okay, it's a really kind of a cool thing. It's actually very cool, to be honest with you. For me as a sociologist, that's a really, really fascinating and a cool thing.
Yeah, what do you
I don't think I'd want to live it with my parents, but it's cool that there's a group of people that do that, you know? Like, okay, so his daughter kind of leaves the fold, and she falls in love with and marries this guy who's not a Jehovah's Witness. And she's like, kind of stops going to the church, right? His daughter, meaning his sister. You get it? Like, it's not his daughter anymore. And she's young. She's like 20 years old when she gets married. And okay. Well, he can't go to the wedding. She's not getting married inside of the church. So he can't go to her wedding.
The father can't.
Yeah, the father, who's now my friend, who I love this guy. He's one of the most amazing, awesome human. He played football at Penn State back in the day, by the way, and he played in the NFL. So he comes to my house one day, and he's like, "Hey, here's what's up," you know. And he tells me, and I knew she was going to get married. And he said, "I'm not going." And he says, "What do you think about that?" Right now, anyone would expect me to say, "Hey, dude, come on, man, you got to go to her wedding. It's your daughter, right?" You know what I mean? Because I would go to whatever, I don't know, you know. And I'm like, well, you can't go. I suppose, of course you can't go to her wedding. Like, you're following this teaching. I've never met a human being who more follows a certain teaching and exudes love and compassion and understanding. And she knew, the daughter knew. It wasn't like, this isn't like, this is what it is, right?
Wow.
And I said, well, of course I support you. Yeah, he can't go. He can't go. You know what I mean? It was like, I'm with you. Like, this is what it is. This is how it fits. It's like, so, you know, they reconcile. I mean, they're connected and so on, right? And so on. And I think she kind of moved back into the church and stuff. But isn't that wild? Like, that's the point. Right? This is the point. This is what it means to see the world from the eyes, from the stepping into the shoes of another human being and seeing the world with them. Right? That's what it means. That's the radical nature of that. You know?
Yeah. No, I 1000% see that there. And there was another thing you said, just how those. It's so interesting. It's very rare to find others. This is going back a little bit, to find others that will sit and listen to somebody that's trying to express, their faith or like push a faith onto someone. This is going back to like when Laurie was like, "Why didn't you come at my door?" You know, like you should have been at my door. You know, like for you and Laurie to want to to talk to the guy on the boardwalk that's handing out Bibles at the beach, you know, not trying to go to the beach, but just trying to hand Bibles out and speak to people. You know, I had when I was in New Hampshire, I did that, and I spoke to a guy for about 15 minutes, you know, 15, 20 minutes. Like it wasn't intended to be that long, right? But it just kind of, it kind of happened, you know, and you know, he pulled me in, I sat and listened, and it feels so good to take somebody else's, you know, and to talk with them. And but it just makes you wonder if there was a time when that was okay, because now it's like, you're crazy if you do that, you know, like stop pushing your ideologies onto me.
Yeah, I don't know where that comes from. Yeah, stop pushing it. It's like, dude, push it, man. Like, don't push it, but like, even if you, okay, sometimes even if it's just like, you're going to hell. Like, to me, that's like, whoa, I'm not going to get offended. I'm offended that you're telling me. What am I offended by? You're telling me I'm going to hell. I'm curious. Like, dude, how did you get to the place where you thought I'm going to hell? You know, that's what I want to ask about. Like when Jeff and I, we set up these debates with the Willard. I think Jeff was part of it, with the Willard preacher, you know. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like, but I spent the whole time, we weren't debating. I was actually just trying to help him make his case for who he was. And it was really cool to listen to them, man. Listen to him. And so like, it's really it's pretty, wait, I was going to say something else about, sometimes Mormons will come to the house. You know, Mormons are the ones that have a little name badge. You'll see it's a white with black lettering. It's a little plastic name badge.
Huh. Okay. I've never seen that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints, right? So you'll see them on campus a lot, kind of thing. But they're young, so they have to go out and they spend their year doing their missionary work, right? So they either go abroad or they'll go in the U.S. And most of the women will stay in the U.S., but the young men will go abroad.
Right.
I think women must go abroad too. I don't know. Maybe it's not single women who can't go abroad. I don't know. There's something, but in any case, right? So these like Mormons came to my door, and I'm like, come on in. They were, and and I'm like, so tell me about Mormonism. Like, tell me what you know. And they were new to it, you know. So they kind of knew, right? They were young, and I'm like, so they start talking, and I'm like, wait, hang on a second, time out. Let me help you with that, right? And so like, and then I started walking them through Mormonism. It could be really better if you said it like this, right? And they're like, oh, all right, okay. I was like, well, keep going. What else? What do you got? And then they're telling me, I'm like, okay, hang on. But why that? Why do you say it that way? And they're like, well, because I'm like, no, hang on. I'm a teacher, right? Let me help you. This is it over here. This is how you want to hook me in. You want to connect me to it. And so it was really cool. It was so much fun. You know, we had this back and forth with it, you know, and I'm like, and when they left, you know, they're like, whoa, God, all right, well, do you want to come to our church? I'm like, nah, dude, I don't want to come. Well, I do kind of. I'd like to, maybe one day I'll go, but no, I'm not going to go. You know,
no, it sounds like you should have been asking, like, do you want to go to my church?
Right. Well, they were in my church. They were in my living room. I had been listening to classic rock and roll, you know, probably like Blue Oyster Cult or something, you know, Led Zeppelin.
The way you talk about it, it sounds like you put them through like a sales training. You're like,
yeah, dude, exactly.
You want to do it. You want to frame it this way.
Listen, trust me, this is what I do, man. I do this for a living. You know?
That is funny.
But I love it, right? It's like I want them to succeed. I want them to, but mostly they're human beings. I want them to be happy. Like, and I'm asking, like, how are you? How are you doing? What do you think about this? Oh, you know, it's kind of hard. It's kind of, I'm like, yeah, well, it should be hard. That's why you do this. That's why your church designed it this way, because this makes you, it builds up your character, right? So, you know, this is really, really important. And so, you know, it's like that kind of thing. So anyway, that's like, dude, Black Sabbath, also Sabbath, man, Paranoid, one of my top 10 albums, probably. Yeah. Yeah. So it's just like, yeah. Sometimes I want to just get in arguments with people. I only get in arguments with Lori. So.
I can imagine how those go. I wish I could be a fly on the wall during that.
Dude, no, you don't want to be, man. Because when Lori and I get into an argument, because she's fire, she's an Aries moon, and
Right.
I'm Aquarius moon, so I'm
You're
like
Aquarius?
all over the place, and she's just like, bam, when she gets ignited, it's serious.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Do you follow?
Anyway,
yeah. I was going to ask you about astrology, but
no, go ahead. We ask one final question, and then we'll blow up.
Oh no, I was just going to ask you about astrology. I didn't know you followed or had any like interest in like that type of mysticism. So it's just cool to hear you.
That's a question for Lori. Actually, everything I know, I learned from her.
Okay. Yeah.
Everything I know, I learned from her. Really fascinating.
Yeah. No, I'm a Pisces myself. I'm on the Aquarius cusp, because I'm a Pisces.
Okay.
The Aquarius is the 18th. I'm the 19th.
Wait, is that your sun or your moon sign?
My sun sign, and then my moon.
When were you born?
February 19th.
No, but what time of day?
Oh, 4:17 in the morning.
Okay. So what's your moon sign?
Pisces moon. I'm a Pisces.
Okay, so I think that's more your dominant moon is what I'm learning.
Right? Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's like your sun, your Pisces is going to rule you more than your moon sign more than your sun sign because you were born at night. So.
And then they're both Pisces. That's the thing. It's Pisces sun and Pisces moon.
Oh, you're Pisces sun and moon?
Yeah. And
then damn.
And then I'll fish all the way. Yeah, all the way around.
Okay, well, anyway, have a conversation with Lori about that. She'll be really fascinating. She'll do your chart for you.
No way, really?
Yeah. That'll be kind of
cool. Because I'm hyped about that. I didn't know Lori was into it like that.
She just has fun.
Yeah.
Anything that Lori applies her intellect to, like it's pretty cool, actually. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, everyone. Listen, we'll come back next week, and then maybe we're gonna have a couple people on. Maybe we'll just do some conversations. But anyway, Elijah, nice questions. Really good engaging with you. It's really helpful for me. It's really fun, actually. You ask really good questions, and you stay focused on it.
I really try. I feel like I had an off day today, but I appreciate that. It's so much fun learning from you, and just and trying to stay on path with you,
Dude, imagine being me. The thing is, that's what makes it fun because when we're able to have conversations like this, when I get to have these memories, just like that memory of being at the Vatican on Christmas Eve day, or that time that in between those three mosques, and like wow, just those kinds of things, all those kinds of memories. It's really nice
to reminisce, to like relive them and again.
Yeah, because that's the point of having experience. That's what I said, that the Kierkegaard piece, right? That life's evil, right? You don't have enough time once you kind of have stuff, including lots of memories. But thankfully I have this kind of space where I can then bring up all of this stuff, and then it makes it
more richer.
Yeah, it makes it richer. It makes it, I feel like, more complete. It's like, okay, life is maybe a less evil because I'm gonna just get a bunch of it out, and then when it's my time to drop my body, it'll be okay.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting that you talk about that, because it makes me think about the like right before you die, supposedly there's these flashbacks, right? Just flooding of memory of all these memories, and you're like, wow, I feel more complete when I have these memories. You're not about to die right now, at least. Like when we had these conversations, you have a space for like these memories. You feel more complete, and it's interesting that supposedly that's what happens before you die too. Is like all these flood to you.
Here's an interesting thing. Several years ago, I was crossing the street and I was just kind of stepping off the curb, and there weren't any cars coming. It wasn't anything like this, but I had the idea that I was about to drop my body, and I stopped and I pulled it together, and I thought, I'm going to drop my body here, right here, and die. In other words, die, right?
Okay.
And I've never felt that in my life. It was just whoa, and I was readying for myself for it, like, here we go. And it didn't happen, but something just came through me. I thought, I think,
You were like,
I
now's
don't
the
know what it
moment.
was.
This is going to happen right now.
Yeah, and then I kept going. It didn't happen. And I went, okay, woo, that was a flash in the pan. That was a moment, but
Wow.
yeah, it was really crazy. It was
So
so
curious,
interesting.
what was
Only
going
time
on?
it ever happened.
Were you just walking? It was like a random moment?
I was
Or you-
walking very slowly. I was sort of standing there, and I decided, hey, I'm going to cross the street. And I just kind of stepped onto or crossed off the curb. There's nobody around, so it wasn't like I thought, oh, I'm going to die. Oh my God, I didn't look and a car could have come. It wasn't like that. It was just that happened to be the very spot where I had this feeling that I was about to let go of my body. Yeah,
Interesting.
really interesting.
You're triggering, like, it's like, what if there was something spiritual about that place for you, in a past life? I don't know. I'm going into.
Dude, I don't know, man. Yeah, maybe so. Except I doubt I was here. I was in State College, and I doubt I was ever here before. But who knows? Maybe I was. Maybe that's why I'm here.
That's interesting.
All right. Listen, man. Thanks for everything.
Thank you, Sam.
Jeff, you can hey, thanks everyone for hopping on. Really appreciate it. Everybody, nice seeing folks, and Godspeed, Godspeed, and Godspeed. The Anarchist Cookbook. I love that. Yeah.
Godspeed. I like that.